Hi, I'm Fred Waugh, and one of my projects as Canada's Parliamentary Poet Laureate is to produce a series of short videos to help make contemporary Canadian poetry more accessible. These recordings illustrate a range of poetry that reflects the identities, places, and modes of poetic writing in Canada. Besides the recording themselves, be sure to check out the supplementary material as an aid to understanding, teaching, and enjoying this poetry. As our first Canadian Poet Laureate George Bowering once said, "Listen up."
I'm George Bowering and I'm a poet. I live in Vancouver. In fact, this is more or less my backyard. And I've been writing poems for longer than most people have been alive in the whole world. I'm going to read two poems today. One of them is a poem about my favorite season, which is summer. And the second one is about two places important to me. One is the Okanagan Valley, where I grew up. And the other one is Trieste, Italy, where I like to go. It's probably my favorite city in the world. I went there one time and wrote a novel. I went there another time and wrote a long poem. I like summer. I like summer so much. The way the tiniest rock gets a shadow behind it, the kind of shadow that makes Mars photographs so interesting. The rocks and shadows you never thought of when you were a boy imagining a voyage to Mars or other planets you preferred. Because the general run of boys your age were Mars fans, the way they were Roy Rogers fans, so you were a Gene Autry fan, and a Red Sox fan because they knew no better than to favor the New York Yankees. And that continues, so that now young women visiting from Japan wear pink hats with white New York Yankees insignia, and their boyfriends have their hair dyed blonde. But that doesn't really work, because Japanese hair seems to go orange when you dye it, which is fashion, isn't it? You have to hand it to someone who makes an asset out of what looks like a drawback. Hence the invention of Scrapple, which I tasted for the first time at the Florida Avenue Grill in Washington, D.C., having always wondered what Charlie Parker and Diz were talking about that winter's night in 1947. And the second poem is called Parts of Speech. He stood on the edge of the mole in Trieste, looking down at the water. It was green and coming up in bumps like something alive. They called it the Adriatic, which sounds all right, like an adjective such as he had learned some oceans west of there, not in the first grade, but eventually adjectives and other parts of speech. As if speech came apart and you could put it together again, a boy's amusement in the days after Christmas. Though he once did get a dreadful tie for Christmas, brown plaid with gold sparkles in its lines, and obviously chosen by his Aunt Lorna, who was stocky and red-headed with a puggy nose. She was from Seattle, where his Uncle Red was the underwater swimming champion one year. He was the painter in the family, a boyhood surviving twin, a man who casually employed an ox-horn cigarette holder. His dog Beans bit our dog Caesar to the bone, and vice versa. Caesar recovered on the beach at Dog Lake, where he loved to swim, though he in no way resembled anything aquatic. In Trieste, though, there was a very old man with visible tendons who scrambled across rocks and into the sea every day of the year, a man beyond description.